All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I'm sure people will continue to jump on. But thank you everyone so much for joining us today for our Edmonds series webinar. We're excited to have y'all here with us. My name is Claire McLemore, and I am one of the marketing managers on our accounting list. And from McGraw-Hill, we also have Steve Schutz, who is our portfolio manager. Just a few housekeeping things before we get started. Everyone has been turned on mute, which is why it was eerily quiet as you were jumping on. So if you have any questions or comments, please use the chat and the Q&A on your right-hand panel. If you do use the chat, there's a little drop down that you can either send it to everyone or all panelists. So feel free to use either. We'll be getting to the questions throughout the presentation and want to make sure that they're all answered. Again, you can also use the Q&A as well. And throughout the presentation, we will be doing polling questions. So those should show up again on the right-hand side of your screen. We would love for you to participate in those as well. We will be recording this session and sending it out as a follow-up, as well as the presentation deck. So you will be receiving those in a follow-up email. We are happy to have our Edmonds author team. So Chris Edmonds, Mark Edmonds, and Jennifer Edmonds on the phone with us today. They're going to go through a lot of exciting stuff. And so with that, I'm just going to hand it over to y'all.
All right. Thanks, Claire. Well, welcome everyone. Thanks for attending. We're really excited to get this opportunity to kind of introduce our text and our approach and kind of talk about new things that are going on in accounting and kind of how we're handling them. And so, but before we jump into that, I just kind of want to introduce ourselves. We're kind of a unique author team, I think, from most people. I'm Chris Edmonds, by the way, and then we also we're a family. So we have my wife Jennifer, who's on the call as well, and she's doing the chat. My brother Mark, he's on the call. He's going to be showing you some stuff later. But this whole series was started by my father in the early '90s, and so my father started this with Phil Olds. Phil Olds was also on it as well. And so we kind of have a family author team, which I think is very unique, but I think it adds a lot of value in a few ways. I think in one way, everyone on our author team is focused on introductory accounting. So we all teach intro, we all focus on intro. That's kind of our life. So we really focus on the needs of introductory accounting students. If you take our author team, there's over like 100 years of teaching experience at the intro level. So we have a lot of teaching experience at the intro level. I think another thing that kind of makes us unique is that we develop all of our own resources. So our text is written by the author team. The videos are made by the author team. The test bank's written by the author team. The end of chapter stuff is all written by the author team. So it's a very consistent approach. So it's kind of something that makes us unique is that we're all a family and we all work really well together most of the time. So that's our author team. And then I want to kind of give you guys a little bit of information. Well, they'll let me about our text. Okay, so we have 4 texts in our series that we offer. And as I said, this was started in the early '90s. And it started with this financial accounting text right here. And we basically have 2 financial accounting texts. So we take, and I'll talk about this more as we go through, but we take a very decision-making approach to accounting. Our goal is we all teach intro a lot, and we try to make our text very approachable to introductory students. And we also try to focus more on decision-making and how events affect financial statements and those types of things. So our financial text, we have 2 of them. They're very much focused on, and I'll show you this as we go through, how events affect statements. The difference in the 2 is this one's more traditional in that we cover debits and credits starting in chapter 3. We show journal entries throughout. It's very similar to a traditional financial accounting text. This one's a little more modern in that we delay the accounting procedure until the end. So we don't show any debits and credits until the end. There's a chapter that covers it at the end. And this book is actually what we're using at UAB right now. We've had really good success with it. We kind of find when you turn one dial at a time, students get it better. So if you just teach them how events affect statements and really how it affects the accounting equation, and then add in the journal entries, the terminology at the end, the procedural terminology at the end, they actually get it a little better. So this is what we're using at UAB, but these are 2 approaches. People it just depends on what you want to do. But this is our financial series, and then we have one managerial accounting text. And again, it's more decision-making focused. It focuses on service and merchandising firms, so we don't have much manufacturing in there. And that's, again, to make managerial accounting more approachable to students. And then we have a survey text that's for non-majors, non-business majors, and it's basically a combination of these two texts, the financial and the managerial. And it's used for non-majors and MBA students as well. So that's kind of our text. That's our team and our text. And what we want to talk about today is kind of the needs of today's accounting students. I think there's a lot going on in accounting right now. We got the new CPA curriculum, the proposal for the new CPA curriculum is being proposed, and I don't know which way that will ultimately end up going, but there is an emphasis on that doesn't affect introductory as much in terms of they don't have as many recommendations for introductory accounting. We've mapped our text to that new curriculum, but I think the point of it is it focuses more on at the intro level. We got to focus on decision making. We have to teach students the why. We have to teach critical thinking. There's also emphasis on data analytics. So those types of things are part of our text already. They have been since the beginning. We've always been a decision-making focused text. We've always thought that's more important than procedure. And so we kind of fit into that. So I want to talk a little bit, and I'll give you some examples of exactly what I mean. So I want to talk a little bit about content, how we organize content, how we're more decision-making focused. And then I think another big thing that's going on in accounting right now is just we have to be able to deliver our courses in multiple formats, whether that's face-to-face, online, hybrid. Students are demanding the ability to take a course online, and we've all had to teach online recently because of COVID, and so you need resources that you can quickly develop an online course or quickly develop a hybrid course. So we really focus on creating resources to meet those needs. And so I would like to, what our plan is, I'm going to show you, kind of give you some of our content. I'm going to show you my course and how I've used it to deliver in multiple formats, whether it's face-to-face, online, or hybrid. And then the final thing I think Mark's going to introduce, he's been working on this a lot, is we do need tools to prepare future accountants and business leaders. And that's, we need to, and that is the data analytics, but our approach to it is we're not really teaching someone to be a data analyst in intro. I mean, the focus is on accounting, but we need students to be able to, interpret accounting information the way they're going to see it in the workplace, whether that's on a dashboard or they need to be able to understand how to, read an Excel spreadsheet or use Excel. So those skills are important for future, business leaders or accountants. And so Mark's going to kind of go through and show those resources as well. But before we dive into this, and this presentation is meant to be interactive, so feel free to jump in anytime with questions. I know Jennifer's on the chat, and she'll jump in and ask the question, so feel free to jump in anytime. But before we dive in, I want to get a little feedback from everyone on the call, just so we can best address the needs. So Claire, I don't know if you can run our first poll. This is the poll. I don't know if you can run it so we can just get a little feedback.
Yep, I just opened it, so everyone should have access to it on the right-hand side of their screen.
So how do I see the results? Is that?
I'll have to publish them. I think I can only see them.
Okay. Well, maybe you can give us some live feedback.
Yeah, I'll let you know. As of right now, none are coming in, so I'm wondering if people are seeing them from their end.
Okay.
I'm not seeing the poll showing up as it usually does on the side.
That is weird.
I don't see a window to open up for the poll either.
Well, what we can do, since it's not opening up, Chris, if you want to put the poll up on the screen, and we can have everyone enter in the chat.
Yeah, and we can do that. Yeah, so feel free to give feedback in the chat. I think I kind of know the answer to this. I was kind of curious. I'm sure everyone has experience teaching face-to-face and probably online now, especially because of COVID. I was kind of curious on how many people are teaching in a hybrid format. I know we're doing some of that at UAB. Oh, there's the poll.
The poll showed up.
All right. So yeah, jump in if you can and vote on the poll. See if we can get some results.
Okay. So are you seeing these from your end, Chris, too, then?
Yeah, I see it. So I'm voting right now just to see if that works.
All the answers are coming in. So about 70% face-to-face, 37% hybrid, and 52% online.
Okay. Okay. So that's interesting. Yeah, it's kind of what I would expect. So yeah, we have most people teach face-to-face. It's interesting that not everyone's teaching face-to-face right now. Some people are just teaching online, but I think we're seeing a, growing need for online resources. And so we're going to spend a little bit of time focusing on that. Let's try our second poll, Claire, if we can jump in. This one's more interesting too, I think. Just like, what are the challenges of teaching intro? Let's just kind of see. And you can vote for more than one, but I'm kind of curious on what the biggest challenges are for you guys.
Are y'all seeing the poll from your end? Okay, I see.
Yeah, we're seeing it. Yeah,
Yes, we are.
it's good.
Chris, do you want me just to read out like the top 3 for you?
Yeah, give me the top 3. That'd be great.
Okay, I'll give it a few more seconds. All right, so 52% or now 56% said engaging students. 56% said students are uninterested in the subject. And there's a tie at 41%. Students memorize instead of understand, and information needs of accounting majors versus non-majors.
Okay. All right. That's great. So, yeah, I think that's the same experience I've had teaching. And I think Mark, Jennifer would say the same thing as well. It's like engagement is hard. We can talk about ways of doing that. I think, we're really focused on engaging with content. So I'll kind of get into that. And then memorization is definitely a problem with accounting. Everyone knows that's the problem. Students try to memorize, and it's really hard to memorize, especially financial accounting. It's you can't really memorize and do well. So we'll talk about kind of how we address that. And then I think what was the other one, Claire? It was the accounting majors and non-majors, and what was the other one?
Memorize instead of understand, information needs of accounting majors versus non-majors, engaging students, and they're uninterested in the subject.
Okay, uninterested. Okay. I think that's, and that kind of gets into the same thing as the majors versus non-majors. I think that's, and I'll kind of talk about, our content is a lot of times written just for accountants, and, we need to make sure that it's written for both majors and non-majors. And that's really kind of why if I go back up, why we created this text, is to make sure that, we include majors and non-majors and a lot of times non-majors don't need as much emphasis on journal entries and things like that, but they need to be able to understand how an event affects a financial statement, and they need to be able to read a financial statement. So that was kind of the focus of that. That helps. That gives me some context to where everyone's coming from. Okay. So what I'd like to do is just kind of take a few minutes and kind of show you, really highlighting our content and kind of how because we struggle with these exact same things, like engaging students, memorization, addressing the needs of majors and non-majors, and getting students interested. When we've designed our texts and our resources, we've done a lot of things to get them interested and to get them engaged. And so let me kind of show you what I mean. The first thing I think we do that is important is we really focus on learn by doing. And I think everyone that teaches accounting knows that, like, students have to do accounting to learn accounting, and you need to do it early. You need to start doing accounting immediately. And a lot of times I think we reorganized our text to accommodate this. And what I mean by that is most intro texts start off literally the first 100 pages where it's just terminology. They're not actually doing accounting yet. They're just learning all the terminology. You learn the conceptual framework, all the different terminology, but you're not applying any of that terminology. And we kind of take a different approach. We kind of apply the terminology and the concepts as you go. So, I mean, in our text, on page 13, like at the very beginning, students are actually, and we start with just, showing how events affect an accounting equation, but we start drilling doing accounting, having them do accounting in the classroom, actually working accounting in the classroom from the very beginning. So I don't start my class with like, and I've taught the other way before, where you start with PowerPoints and you go through lots of terminology, and the students don't really get it because they're just memorizing it. Instead, we start by doing. So, day one, I have my students doing accounting. It may be very simple, like this is a very simple event, just a cash event, issuing stock. And it may be just teaching them a very simple accounting equation, the very simple elements. We'll focus on this. So I spend some time teaching and focusing on this. But once we get the accounting equation and the very basic accounts, we will start showing how very simple events affect those accounts. So they start doing accounting, day 1 or 2 of the class. They're actually doing accounting. I think that's something that makes us unique. The other thing we do, and this is in terms of helping students not memorize, is we start very simple and we build. So we said memorization is a problem. And I know when I've taught accounting, I've seen memorization being a problem. And a lot of times it's what we found was it's the way we're actually structuring the way we teach it. Because if you look at a lot of intro books, you start off and the first thing you do is you show your students like a set of financial statements. Maybe they're real world financials. And that's exciting to us. It's a real thing. But students will immediately ask questions like, well, what's accumulated depreciation like on the balance sheet? And you can't really tell them at that point. You just say, we'll get to that later. We'll get to that later. But what that's telling the student is they're seeing all this content. They don't understand how it fits together, and it puts them in a memorization mode right from the beginning. So we kind of take a different approach in that we just start very simply. So like in chapter 1, like in a financial text, we do the same thing in managerial, but just for an example, in financial, we'll start with just cash events. So we start with very simple business events, just 5 events in chapter 1. And we have those students take those events. They'll, show how they impact an accounting equation, and then we'll build financial statements, very simple financial statements with those events, those 5 cash events. So there'll be no accruals. So they don't have to deal with receivables, payables. There's no inventory. We use a service company, so there's no inventory, no cost of goods sold. So we end up creating a very simple set of financial statements that every student understands. They understand the underlying events behind the statements, and then we just build. So chapter 2, we add in very basic accruals, just like payables and receivables. And then they have the financial statements are a little more complicated. Chapter 3, in our traditional text, we do double entry accounting, journal entries, and that stuff. And the other text, we wait and cover this chapter at the end. But then chapter 4 will actually introduce a merchandising company. So you have inventory, cost of goods sold. You now have a multi-step income statement, and then it just goes on like that. We get into receivables, property, plant, and equipment, all the different accounts. But our financial statements build, and they won't see stuff in they'll understand everything in chapter 1, and then we'll turn it dial and add chapter 2, chapter 3, and so on. So we take that approach, and I think that helps, in my experience, with memorization. Okay, the other thing, and this is really what makes our financial text unique, and I think this is really what we mean by decision making, is we emphasize how an event affects a financial statement. And this is the way business people think. And this is really our approach to making sure that we're addressing the needs of majors and non-majors. I mean, if you're in a business meeting, you'll hear questions like, well, how will this affect our earnings if this happens? How will this affect our cash position? You don't hear like, what's the journal entry for something? The students need to be able to understand what a business event is, and then how does that actually impact the financial statements. And I think to understand why this is a problem, why a lot of times intro students can't do this, is if you think about the way we traditionally teach intro, we have business events, we go through this procedure. So we'll record, maybe we start with 5, 10 business events, we'll record them to a journal, we'll post them to a ledger, make a trial balance, make some adjusting entries, and make financial statements. And we'll go through this whole process for our students. But this is a complicated process. It takes a lot of time. We can't go through it for every single transaction. So what ends up happening is we get stuck here. We may go through it a few times, but then as new events are introduced, we show the business event, we show the journal entry, show the business event, and show the journal entry. And you can get your students to do really well at, here's a business event, what's journal entry? And they can say, oh, you debit this, you credit this. But if you ask them, well, how did that impact your financial statement? What did that do to your income statement? What did it do to your balance sheet? A lot of times they won't be able to tell you. They know the journal entry, and that's because this is what was drilled. And the problem sets, the end of chapter content, the testing was drilling here, and that's not really preparing future business leaders, or it's just it's preparing bookkeepers. And so while this is an important step, we want to make sure that our students also get this step, a business event to a financial statement. And to do that, we use a statements model. So you can see a statements model down here. And so this is something that's unique to our text. We've been doing this for years. And it's basically, you have a business event and you have a model. Like, how does it affect the balance sheet? So it's horizontal, the income statement, and the statement of cash flows. So you have all three of the statements, and each business event we show the impact. So we have some event, Cato Consultants provided $37.50 of consulting services to its clients. Cato completed the work, sent bills to the clients, but has not yet received any cash. We would show the journal entry in our traditional financial text, but then we go a step further and how did it impact the balance sheet, income statement, and statement of cash flows? And this is drilled throughout. Like, every problem set is drilled this throughout every chapter. So students can tell you, this would increase the company's assets and the owner's equity. It would be shown on the income statement. It would not affect the cash flow statement. And I think doing this makes concepts like accruals a lot more clear. Like, a lot of times students don't really get what an accrual is. Well, an accrual happens when we recognize something on our income statement, but it doesn't hit the cash flow statement. That's an accrual. We're accruing it. We're recognizing it now. We'll get the cash later. Deferral would be the opposite. It hits the cash flow statement, but we're not yet reporting it on income. We're going to wait to report it as part of our income. So those concepts become more clear. And you can talk more about what the real impact of a transaction is in a model like this versus a journal entry. I mean, you can't say much about a journal entry. So this is something that's unique to our text. As you notice, also, I think one thing that's unique is we cover the cash flow statement throughout. Starting in chapter 1, we cover the cash flow statement in every chapter. And we don't do it. I think it's really interesting if you the history of the cash flow statement, almost all introductory text is a chapter at the end of the book. And it was done that way because when the standard came out in the late 80s, that was the easiest way to accommodate it. They didn't want to rewrite the whole text. They just, added a chapter at the end. Well, our book was originally written in the early 90s. So we incorporated it throughout. Now, we don't teach like the indirect method until the end. We have a chapter at the end that does teach the indirect method. When we're talking about incorporating it throughout, all we're doing is telling students, hey, if we have an event, tell us, was it an operating, an investing, or a financing activity? That's it. And did it affect the cash flow statement? So if it affected cash, it's going to affect the cash flow statement, and then you just got to classify that as financing, operating, or investing. So it's real simple, but it is covered throughout, and we do make sure that statement's covered. But we've taught this way. I've taught this way for years, and students get it really easy. They can classify an event as operating, financing, or investing. So that's our model that we use. That kind of makes us unique. And then the last thing I'll talk about, and then we'll kind of get into resources, is I think we really strive to use clear terminology. And I think you can kind of see, just the way we describe a business event. We describe it in terms of what actually happened. Like, we provide services, we completed the work, we sent bills, but we didn't collect any cash. Like, we tell them exactly, not just, provided services on account. Like, that doesn't really, students don't understand what that means. So we really work to describe the business event. We also frame things the right way. And this is really something interesting. I think, a lot of times students get confused in intro accounting because, especially in financial, because they don't know they account for the wrong person. They've always been a customer. Now they're accounting from the perspective of a business. But a lot of intro text, confuse this issue by framing things not from the perspective of the business, but instead someone else. Like this is typically the first transaction in every intro text. The owner's invested $5,000 into Cato Consultants. If you gave that transaction to your class and you asked them, is that an operating, investing, or financing activity? The whole class would tell you it's an investing activity. They say, oh, it's investing. The owner's invested. And you'd say, no, it's not investing, it's financing. And that's because you're thinking of it from Cato and they're thinking of it from the owners. But they're actually right because this is framed from the perspective of the owner. So it's important that, especially at the intro level, that we frame everything from the business perspective so that, students, to give you an example, instead of saying this, which most texts do, we would say Cato Consultants issued common stock acquiring 5,000 cash from the owners. That's clearly a financing activity. Makes it, it's very clear. And students would be able to see that as a financing activity. So in our text, every event is framed from the perspective of the business. I think that makes it more clear for intro students. It helps them not get confused. They know who they're accounting for. All right, so if there are any questions, y'all feel free to jump in. I don't want to just keep going. I'm not seeing the chat, so if someone sees questions in the chat, feel free to let me know, and we can address any of this stuff.
Chris, right now there's nothing coming through chat, and we've been putting out the feelers for any questions, but nothing's coming.
Okay. Well, I'll move on. We'll move on to actually how I think so that's we've covered kind of like how we try to make accounting more approachable, easier, and clear, and also focus on decision making. I want to kind of show how we make our courses work for online, face-to-face, hybrid. So this is, and I think this is an issue that's coming up a lot right now. Is people have to teach online. We know during COVID there was a big issue of we had all these classes that were face-to-face had to be moved online instantly. The way we design content, I teach face-to-face and I teach online. My courses are exactly the same. It's the same course, face-to-face, online. So when COVID happened, I had to move my face-to-face class online. It was nothing. I just it was the same course. So to give you an example of what we do, this is my Connect course. I don't know if you're familiar with Connect, but this is the McGraw-Hill Connect. This is the instructor side. And so it's just basically where you add all your assignments. You can add everything for, it's making me sign in again. 1 second. So you add all your assignments, all your end of chapter stuff, but then then you organize it here, and you can organize it in folders, and then you have your assignments. And so one thing that I think makes our text work really well for an online format is we have videos for every single learning objective. So each of these is a video. I'll show you what one of them looks like. But so this is a video, and it's for the entire text. So we have a written text, but we also have a video text. You could watch our entire text and not have to the students could watch everything if they wanted to. A lot of my students watch everything. So let me click on this. I'll show you kind of what I mean. So here's a video. So, that I kind of go through. I don't know if y'all be able to hear this, but
in the last video, we introduced the accounting equation, and we talked about how this style account is also going to go up 20,000. Okay, let's look at the next event. And this says RCS borrowed 400,000 cash from a creditor. So this is also just like in the last example where we borrowed money from the bank.
So I won't make y'all watch this whole thing, but you kind of get through. We write it out. We show how everything works. All the videos cover one learning objective, and then they have like a quiz that's attached. So the student can so a lot of times, in my online classes, these work great because they can just watch the videos. They can take the quizzes, but even my face-to-face classes, I use them as a supplement. They can watch the videos instead of reading the book if they want to. A lot of students, would prefer to watch a video than to read a book, and they can watch a video and then they can take a quiz below it, and that tells me, are they prepared for class, online or face-to-face? And they, and there's one so there's like 10 or 12 per chapter. They're all closed caption. You can view the transcript. Students, it's kind of funny, students watch these in my class, and I see them, before class, I'll watch them on their phones, and they'll watch them 2 times speed, so really fast.
And the question is, do we account for this? And the answer is, according to GAAP, we do not account for this. Okay,
so they can speed them up, they can slow them down, so they're very interactive, and it's a great resource in terms of teaching them. So my course, if you kind of look at it, it's set up where every day they come, they watch 3 videos, they take quizzes, they have homework that's into chapter. I'll kind of show you some of this in a second, and then that's how they prepare for class. And then the same thing, this class on 9/8, September 8th, they'd have 2 videos to watch, and they prepare for class. Now they could read the text too. The videos have a link to the text, so you can open up the text and read it, or they can just watch the video and take the quiz. And so this is great for setting up an online course or a hybrid course. You want to do a flipped hybrid course or something like that, or a face-to-face course. It makes it really easy. The other thing I think that's kind of cool is you get down further, go down maybe 7.1. So, if you get later in the class, a lot of times students, especially in financial accounting, they get lost later on. They're like, I'm lost. I don't know what to do. They can quickly look at this and they can say, okay, I'm watching this video. I don't understand. Well, the prereq video is 2.2. So I need to, if I don't understand this video, I need to go back and watch, video 2.2. And if I don't understand 2.2, I need to go back to 2.1. So it allows them, because we have prereqs for every learning objective, it allows them to trace their way back, and they can always kind of figure out what they're missing. So it's a really good tool, especially for financial accounting, because as we know, a lot of times students start memorizing, they realize later on that that's not working, and they need to go back. And by organizing it this way, they have a guide that kind of takes them back, so they can rewatch old content and catch up. So I think that's a really useful resource. So that's kind of the way it works. We have videos. We have lots of resources. These are the ones I kind of focus on. Our homework is very interactive as well. I'll kind of preview some of it. So, it's very interactive. It's just, these are like end of chapter problems, but you can see these are all filled out. This is the solution, but the students would have to fill this out and go through the different requirements, make an income statement. They'd have to select all the accounts, put in all the numbers. So it's very interactive homework. I think it's a great setup for that. So these are also great for online and great for face-to-face. And another thing that's cool about this homework is like, there's teaching videos through the whole book that you can use that I just showed you, but there's also hint videos with the homework. So you can, click on, if the student doesn't understand a homework problem, they can click on the hint and there'll be a video that works a similar problem. So that not the same problem, but a similar one. So it kind of teaches them as they're doing the homework, they have videos for that as well, which is, I think, really useful. And as an instructor, you can turn these on or off. I like to leave them on. I think they're great in terms of, especially for an online class. If the students get stuck, they can watch a video and figure it out. So there's tons of video resources that we have to kind of make this, make it very easy to deliver your course, face-to-face, online, or in a hybrid format.
Quick question in the chat, Chris. Is that the pre-built model in Connect?
There is a pre-built course in Connect that we can send to you. It groups videos by chapter, so it groups them all by chapter, and then you kind of have to take out the ones that you don't want to cover, depending on what learning objectives you want to cover. I'm also happy to share my pre-built course with anyone that would like it. So if you'd like to have a copy of my exact course, and this format is for all of our books. So we have videos and the same resources for every book, and I have pre-built courses for all of them. If you'd like my exact course, I can give you my syllabus and my course, or you can use the Connect pre-built. But the Connect pre-built is grouped by chapter, and it includes all the learning objectives, so it includes everything. And that's just because we don't know what people want to cover or not. So we can definitely get you a pre-built course if that's something you're interested in.
Chris, I had a couple other questions come to me. In your class, how many opportunities do you give students to check my work? I want to give students the opportunity to succeed, but I wonder if I'm making it too easy for them. Just wondering what your best practice is.
Yeah, for the videos, I give them, it really depends on the problem. Like for a video assignment that has a quiz, I'll give them check my work one time. And that's really because I think with the videos, these are really just to make sure that they read the material, they watch the material, I guess. They watch the video and they understand the concept. And, I do allow check my work one time on these just to give them that option. So that's a multiple choice. For some of the problems, it kind of depends on how complicated it is. Sometimes, with homework, if it's really complicated, I'll give them check my work, 5 times. Sometimes it depends on, when I'm teaching online, I make homework part of their grade. And so I'll give them check my work 5 times, especially if it's a problem. And then it's a more complicated problem, has a lot of steps to it. If it's a simple problem, maybe only 1 or 2, just kind of depends on the problem. For my face-to-face classes, a lot of times I make them work the homework in class, and we do quizzes in class. And then I assign extra homework, just as practice. And in that, I let them check my work as many times as they'd like. So it just kind of depends on the problem. I'm happy to, I'd have to really understand, what you're trying to do, and, your students to probably give specific advice. But yeah, that's what I do.
Awesome. She said, thank you. There was also another question that came in. Is there Is there a video to walk students through what you just showed in Connect?
To walk students through?
Yeah, so the Connect orientation videos.
Yeah, we do have lots of Connect orientation videos. So I think they're in the, are they in the question bank? Can't remember.
Yeah.
I've built my course so long ago, I can't remember. Okay, yeah. So yeah, we have Connect orientation videos that walk them through the lecture videos, how those work that I just showed you guys. Walk them through how the end of chapter problems work. And those are really good in terms of, so they actually understand how all the work. Proctorio, that's another service that McGraw-Hill has. It's a great service. We've been using it at UAB and been very happy with it. We're moving away from ProctorU, but we were using ProctorU. Now we're using Proctorio. It works great. That's a testing for online testing. So the video for that. SmartBook, I haven't had a chance to go into it, but there's the SmartBook. If you're familiar, it's basically a book where you can read, and it prompts students with questions as they're reading the book. It's a great resource. I usually actually assign it. A lot of people assign it as like pre-class reading. So read this before you come to class. I do videos before you come to class because my students, I think they tend to like to watch videos better than read. And I assign this as, extra practice for the exam. But basically, as they're reading the book, it prompts them with questions. And if they get that, if they get the question right, they can move on. If they get it wrong, it may send them back and make them, read another section again. So it's a really cool book resource. But there's a video for that. And then, there's other just orientation videos on how to use Connect as well. So yeah, and typically in my classes, I assign these first day. It's like the first thing they have to do is go through these so that they understand how everything works. Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so I had it right here. I didn't even forgot. There's my Connect orientation videos. Yeah. All right. So that's those are the resources that I focus on. There's I'm going to let Mark talk about a lot of them, but there's a ton of resources in all of our text in terms of what we cover, in terms of lecture videos. You can do videos with assessment, without assessment. We have analyze, think, communicate, ATC problems. So these are end of chapter problems that really focus on like critical thinking. And so you can assign those. We have exercises with problems, which are probably familiar with, and we have test bank. We also, this is an older text. Our newer text also have, as Mark will show you, data visualization. We have Excel simulation. So lots of different features. It just depends on what you're looking for and what you want to do. So I'm going to stop there. If there are any other questions, I'm happy to answer them, but I want to give Mark a chance. We've been really working to make our text, as I said, more modern and more have resources to show students what they're likely to see in the workplace. So I'm going to turn it over to Mark and let him show you some of the cool things that he's been creating. So Claire, I don't know if you can switch us.
Yep, I just gave him presenter mode.
Okay.
Hey everyone, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, Mark.
All right, great. Yeah, so as Chris said, I'm Chris's brother, another member of the Edmonds family, and we actually had another addition to our family about 3 days ago. Me and my wife had a little baby boy. So you see me sipping on my coffee cup quite a bit, you can understand why. But I'm excited today to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the tools that we put in our book that really address the future needs of accountants. So we can't show you everything today. Obviously, there's a lot, like Chris said, a lot of resources in that book. But we do want to show you 3 specific resources that kind of relate to this future focus idea. So first one here, make sure my PowerPoint's working. So the first one's like financial.
You want to expand it? You want to expand your PowerPoint?
Oh, sure. That looking better?
Yeah.
Good deal. So yeah, one topic that we hear a lot about is FSA, or financial statement analysis. And so this is a very complicated topic. I do think normally this is probably taught at a much higher level type course, but we tried to include a lot of this stuff at more of an introductory level. And one way we've done that is really introducing real world company stuff inside the text. So we have a variety of features that do this: the Curious Accountant, international accounting focus. One of them, though, that kind of really speaks to FSA, or financial statement analysis, is this financial analyst section. So in each chapter, we have a section that really they go through and they do some kind of basic financial statement analysis. It's often involving things like ratios, but these are applied to the chapter concepts within each chapter. So this is one way to kind of get at that critical thinking idea, to try to do some basic FSA skills at more of an intro level. And again, these are included in each chapter. Now, if you wanted to go into kind of a deeper dive into FSA, if it's something that you really wanted to put a little heavier focus on, we also have an entire chapter dedicated to financial statement analysis in each book. And you can kind of see the learning objectives associated with those, but this is going to be a lot of in-depth ratio analysis involving, real world type company numbers, comparing balance sheets, income statements, all the kinds of things that you would expect a basic introductory student to be able to do. So trying to take some of those skill sets that maybe, are higher level courses, but bringing them down and giving students a chance to kind of focus on this stuff at a lower level. The next kind of thing that I thought was pretty exciting, something that's kind of come to McGraw-Hill recently, is this idea of integrated Excel. And so we've picked a few problems out of each chapter and all the texts, and within Connect, you can actually launch live Excel. And so these problems can be worked using the Excel platform, just like you would normally see it within Windows. You have all the features of normal Excel, the formulas, all that. And again, we've got about 2 to 3 problems in each chapter that students can work out in Excel. So this would be sort of what a lot of people would probably consider kind of the basic intro to data analytics. And I've spent a lot of my time, focused on managerial accounting lately, and significantly more on data analytics. And so I've put a lot of thought and a lot of effort into trying to figure out how do we take some of these advanced data analytic concepts and implement them more into an introductory level course. And Excel is one of those ways that we can kind of, start to teach them the basics of formulas, spreadsheets, the functionality of Excel. And integrated Excel is a really cool way to do that without having to put any software on your students' computers. So everything can just be launched directly from the browser. The last topic that I wanted to kind of briefly touch on is data visualization. And I'm going to actually show you kind of what this looks like. So let me get to Safari. So hopefully you guys can see this. My WebEx is a little on my screen, but overall, guys, so what we tried to do, we took a kind of a 2-pronged approach to data visualization at the introductory level. So the first thing I'm going to be showing you is a thing we call Tableau dashboard activities. And these allow your students to really work with a visualization straight in Connect. So again, they don't have to put any software on their computer. You don't have to deal with any of the installation issues or any of that kind of stuff. But it really gives them an opportunity to kind of work with a data visualization straight in Connect. Now, we've taken a little different approach to this than some of the other texts that I've seen that kind of do this similar kind of idea with Tableau dashboard activities. But so we really try to reteach the chapter concepts in a visualized form. And that's kind of one way that we can show that you could teach it the traditional way using exercises and problems, PowerPoints, all the other resources you're probably accustomed to seeing. But these visualizations are just another way of expressing that chapter content inside Tableau. And I think that's a really cool way to show your students this sort of content in a different way, get them excited about Tableau dashboards, visualizations, and we have lots of different features in here to kind of get them acquainted with that. So again, we have about one of these for each chapter. The large majority of chapters have these, and I'll kind of walk you through how they work briefly. So each one starts off with sort of description, and these build in complexity. So the chapter 1 would be probably the simplest one. And as they progress through the chapters, so you'll see they get more and more dynamic, more and more complex as they get more and more comfortable working with visualizations. But they all start off with a little narrative. So they'll read the narrative, and then here will be the actual data visualization that they would work with. So this one's just an accounting equation bar chart for 3 companies, Brewster, Dino, and Mabel. And they can kind of see, this is a visual representation of a balance sheet as opposed to, your traditional just listing accounts with numbers and all that. So a different way of expressing balance sheets. All of these have 5 questions associated with them. So when they come down here, there's 5 multiple choice questions that you can use to assess how they interpreted that visualization. And similar to how the visualizations build in complexity, the questions do too. So the first question is normally something like a recall question. Just tell me that you can read some data out of the visualization. And as you progress down through the questions, they start getting more to that critical thinking aspect. So really interpreting the information and the visualization and applying it. And you can see each of these has explanations as well, so the students can get some feedback whenever they get a question wrong. But I'll kind of cycle through to show you what some of these kind of look like as they build in complexity. And these are the ones in our financial text We're going to have these in our managerial text. Those are in development. I'm going to give you a little sneak preview of those as well. So this would be the chapter 2 one. And at this point, they can start like interacting with the dashboard and changing the output depending on, what they select. So kind of giving them that idea to be interactive with the dashboards. Kind of keep moving. This would be a similar one where they can select different presentations of balance sheets. And then you can see we kind of have some alternate looking type visualizations. So we really did our best to try to give them different types of visualizations that show different ways of expressing the information. This one's kind of cool. It can kind of show you the sources of funding. So they could highlight cash and it would show you exactly which expenses were paid in cash versus credit. And then if we keep going, we can show you some of these other features. So over here, now you can really start to see, the complexities building. You'll notice the narrative's getting a little longer. We're showing a multitude of different types of visualizations to teach those concepts. So as the chapter concepts build in complexity, so do these visualizations. And the questions sort of build in complexity as well to kind of support the increased complexity in the visualization. Show you a couple more. This one I think is one. Yeah, I really like this one. It was kind of cool. So in this one, we're really trying to show them, how do different depreciation methods affect the balance sheet, affect the income statement. And so here we actually added some animation. So they can click over here on the slider and they can actually see how these statements are changing over time, depending on which depreciation method they selected. And they can also see that in a graphical line chart below. So again, just the idea that we're really trying to take the chapter concepts you're already covering and give you an alternative way of sort of teaching those concepts. And one that I think kind of excites students. I know my students have given me a lot of positive feedback going through these things. So as we go, now we're kind of increasing complexity. There's different filtering options they can use to select different types of taxes in this one. And there's 2 filters on this one exactly. So again, we're trying to teach them not only to use the information inside something like a Tableau visualization, but how to mold it, how to change it, how to edit it so that they can find the information they need to answer the related business question. And these just kind of keep going, guys. So again, all different types. Just wanted to give you a good brief preview of what these look like.
There's a few questions, Mark.
Oh, sure, yeah.
There's people want to know are these available for survey? I know they're available for the first chapters 1 through 8. They're going to be available for the rest of the chapters too, aren't they?
That's correct. So let me show you that real quick while you bring it up. So if you'll look at my Tableau public page, you'll see these are all the ones we've started building for managerial. So survey is a combination of both the financial and the managerial text. And so we already have the ones I've been showing you in the financial. And these are the build outs for the ones that'll be in managerial. So we will have one for every single chapter in survey in the next edition coming out.
Cool.
So that's kind of one, like I said, we took a 2-pronged approach, and I'll take all the other questions in just 1 minute. I want to just finish this to kind of show you these 2 approaches. But those allow you, again, the idea of the TDAs or the Tableau dashboard activities is giving your students a chance to work with visualization without getting in the Tableau software. But we do have some professors that really do prefer to have their students work in the software and do prefer to have them have some hands-on work with data visualization. So we've also included an appendix in all the text, and this one does allow the students to get inside Tableau and build some basic visualizations, kind of work with the software a little bit. And this is what it looks like. They have some instructions here. We give them some learning objectives. We try to show them, a data dictionary, the idea of this is how the columns are defined. These are the different types of data fields, giving them that sort of intro to data terminology. There is an actual data set that they'll be able to download here. And then there's a video tutorial. So this was created by me. This is kind of me walking through the different visualizations that they're going to be able to build inside Tableau. And I'll let this play for just a second.
Quantitative or number oriented. So let's go ahead and start our first question. Our first question asks us, which Superstore customer accounts for them?
So you can kind of get it. They have different questions and they'll have to build different visualizations. And this will walk them through exactly how to drag those variables in Tableau to the places and set up the different visualizations that they're going to create. And that comes with an actual quiz assessment. So back up here where they have this data set, they'll be able to download the data set, watch the video to learn how to build the 5 different visualizations. And then they'll use that data set to build those visualizations and answer some questions to ensure that they did it correctly. So this is kind of the 2 ways that we've approached data visualization. One, they can stay inside Connect, not jump in the software, Or if you prefer, we have this sort of exercise where they can actually get in the software and start doing this stuff themselves. So with that, I'll turn it back over and answer any additional questions that we have.
I do see we have one question, Mark. I think this was one asked a little bit ago. And maybe I can address this, or Jen can address this. Jen teaches a lot of managerial, but there was a question about, someone would like the idea that we focus on, this is related to our managerial accounting text, that we focus on service and merchandising firms, but they were concerned that, are the students going to get enough emphasis on manufacturing to prepare them for, cost accounting later on? My answer, I focus more on financial. Mark and Jen,
I'm more on the managerial side. So yeah, I could definitely answer that. So I teach managerial at both the intro and at the advanced level. So I actually do have to make that transition from the intro to those more advanced manufacturing concepts. The way the managerial book is set up is it is service focused, but that is for the initial 10 chapters. So we have added the manufacturing stuff at the end, and that really gives you the option that if you want to focus on things like job order costing, process costing, cost flow, if those are the topics that you do want to include in your intro course, there are chapters in there to ensure that students can learn that. We've just organized it to where those are at the end. And so more of the first 10 chapters, the more managerial decision focused type topics are related more to service type companies.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I was going to say as well. And when I have taught out of that book before. And you can speak to this too, Mark. It makes it more approachable when you start with service and merchandising companies, because it is simpler, and it just makes it more approachable and easier for students to kind of, understand the important concepts that we're trying to get across, and then adding the manufacturing stuff at the end, it works pretty well.
Yep, totally agree. Seeing any other questions?
I'm looking. 1 second. I don't see anything else. Does anyone else see anything else?
I don't have anything else from my end.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything here either.
One note to mention, guys, there's so many resources in these texts, and there's so much to show off in such a short period of time. I'd really encourage anyone to kind of get a demo course and kind of walk through this stuff yourselves, be able to play with that integrated Excel, be able to play with these Tableau visualizations, watch the videos Chris went over. There's so much in there that, like I said, we really have trouble going over all of it in a short period, but if you demo it, you'll really have an opportunity to kind of take a deeper dive. Please reach out if we can send you a course or give you an option to kind of look at this stuff in more detail.
Yeah, I'd echo that from Mark. I mean, we're really happy to reach out and talk to anyone. We love talking to people that teach accounting. I mean, that's what we love to do. And so if anyone wants to reach out, we're more than happy to talk to anyone one-on-one about any of these resources and how we use them, and, what's worked for us and what hasn't worked.
Question just came in on the approach translating into the intermediate accounting.
Yeah, this is a great question. I mean, I think if you're using our traditional financial book, it's not a big deal at all, because it's it's the way we've always done it. So they get the debits and credits and the procedure throughout the course. If you're using the book that we're using at UAB, the book where we cover debits and credits at the end, it is a different approach. But we've actually found that they're doing better in intermediate accounting. And I wish I had more time to kind of give a demo of how we do this, but it gets to the point of just turning $1 at a time. I mean, if you understand, truly understand how an event affects an accounting equation, every single event we have is going to affect, the accounting equation or our balance sheet. Any accounting event affects it. If you understand that, adding the debit and credit terminology is fairly simple. I mean, if you know how it affects assets, liabilities, and equity, I mean, what's debit and credit. If it increased an asset account, we know we're going to debit it. If it decreased assets, we know we're going to credit it. And that holds true whether it's a regular account or a contra account. I mean, even a contra account, when we depreciate something, we know that's decreasing assets. That's why we're crediting accumulated depreciation. So, we teach it from that perspective, and it makes it way easier. I mean, we know that anytime you have revenue, that's increasing the owner's equity in the company. So we're crediting. And anytime you have an expense, that's decreasing the owner's equity. So we're debiting. You have a dividend, you're decreasing the equity. You're paying out equity. So you're going to debit it. So it's, it really makes it simple in terms of if you drill the whole semester on how it affects the accounting equation, and they get that down, they really understand, okay, I understand how every event affects assets, liabilities, and equity. Debit and crediting is just adding a little terminology. You know, if it's increasing assets, we debit. If it's increasing liabilities or equity, we credit. And we found our intermediate students are doing great with that because it simplifies it all. They're not memorizing the debit and credit. They're defining whether to debit and credit based on the impact on assets, liability, and equity. So that makes, like, whenever you get to contra accounts, it makes it real simple. You don't have to memorize, like, oh, accumulated depreciation, I have to credit that because it's a contract. No, you just credit it because we're decreasing assets. And anytime we're decreasing assets, we're going to credit that asset account. So yeah, it actually is working really well for us in intermediate, but it is a new approach. And if anyone would like more information on that, I'm happy to talk one-on-one. Okay, it looks like there was a follow-up question too. Let me read this. Yeah, it's the same basic question. Since we're emphasizing journal entries less, does that cause a problem in intermediate? And I'd answer it the exact same way. I don't think it causes a problem in intermediate. Where the problem is a lot of times students, when they're learning journal entries, all they're doing is memorizing them. And that works okay for a little while, but when they get into more complicated topics in intermediate, they're completely confused. The approach that we're using in that new book is, you know, they learn first what's it actually doing to the accounting equation, which every event does. And then, you know, the journal entries just, you know, it's defined based on how it affected assets, liabilities, or equity. And that holds true. They're not memorizing. They understand the impact. And then based on that impact, they can do the journal entry. So yeah, it doesn't really cause a problem, but it is as I said, it's a new approach. And, you know, anyone that would like more information on it, I'm more than happy to go into more detail and talk one-on-one.
I do want to stress in the financial text, you know, we also provide the journal entry. So, you know, we do this a couple different ways. We have a no debits credits text that doesn't include the journal entry, and we have a financial text that does. So we agree that this can be taught a multitude of ways, but in the financial text, they're always going to have a journal entry followed by the statements model. So they're seeing both the entry, and we do want them to know that, and they're also seeing how that entry impacts the statement. So that, you know, they're getting the two pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, and I'd say that's really you talk about what makes our text unique is that statements model is included. So, you know, if you want to teach the traditional way, but you want to make sure they also understand financial statement impacts, that would be our traditional financial. If you want to delay debits and credits, that would be the new financial that we have. And so they both work. You know, they both work. But yeah, we've been using the new one at UAB and had really good success with it.
Chris, Mark, there was one other question that came in just regarding T accounts and if you cover T accounts or use T accounts in either of the books.
Yeah, we do in the traditional financial text. So the text on the far left on Mark's screen, that one we use T accounts a lot. We do T accounts, and we use them in the other book too, but we don't teach them until the end. So we still use T accounts. We just wait until the end to teach them.
And contact information. So did we not have
I'll throw my email in the chat, and then so here we'll throw our emails in the chat.
I can put it on the screen here.
And there's a question about the 10th edition, which is in the process of publishing and will be published in the spring for summer and fall use.
And I know Chris mentioned as well that he'd be happy to share his Connect course, and there were a few requests. So if you wouldn't mind just putting in your email in the chat, and I'll make sure to send that over to them to get that copied into your account.
Yeah, email and which course you'd like, or, you know, and it's fine if you want multiple ones, but what book? So email and book would be useful.
And of course, our follow-up information will have Claire's and my contact information. If there's any way that we can help you from McGraw-Hill side, we'd be more than happy to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, I know we are 1 minute over our time. Thank you all so much for joining us. We really appreciate your time. And thank you, Chris, Mark, and Jennifer for jumping on and taking us through this. I think this was really helpful. So just as a reminder, we will be sending out a copy of the recording as well as the slides. So you should be receiving that within the next couple of weeks. And we'll be sure to follow up with y'all that are putting your email in the chat. I hope everyone has a great rest of their week. And hopefully we'll talk soon. Thank y'all.
Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.